Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about linear perspective. It's a system that was developed around 1400s in the Renaissance by an Italian architect that has been used since 1400s by artists, also filmmakers, as well as artists who design spaces in the video games that you guys like to play. The system allows for the creation of the illusion of depth. Even though you're looking at a flat piece of paper or a flat canvas or a flat screen, it appears as if you're actually moving through rooms or streets, or you can move above cities or move into the hallways. And that awareness of three-dimensionality or three-dimensional space is really an illusion, again, that's created by using the system that I'm going to teach you today. That's actually very simple, just takes a little bit of time getting used to and understanding, and hopefully I can make it fun for you so that you can be open and to use it in your drawings. So anytime that you want to draw or make it something look as if it is three-dimensional, from furniture to objects, to whole rooms, to cities and buildings and streets, and anytime you want a three-dimensional depth of space, anytime you want to create the illusion of the depth of space, you are utilizing a perspective. And whenever you're dealing with objects or things that are more linear, or that could be drawn using geometry, then you're using linear perspective. And that's what we're going to learn about today.
So before you begin drawing, I recommend that you walk around with your camera and change your perspective as you look at the space. So from here, it will look a certain way. But if I move my camera a little bit this way, then that's a different perspective. If we look at my couch from down here, that's one perspective. But if I look at it from up here, this is almost a one-point perspective drawing of the couch and the coffee table. You can see the lines receding. But if I walk over this way, where I see the corner, I see two sides of the coffee table and the couch. So that's a two-point perspective, right? So move around, and if I bring it up higher, that's a certain perspective, a different perspective than if I bring my camera down low. So take your time and explore the space with your camera and take lots of photos so that you can observe how the lines change when you change your perspective. If I move this way, I see the couch from the back, and that also gives me a two-point perspective drawing. I'll give you this example also in my studio. So here we're looking at the white table in one-point perspective, but if I move to the corner right here, this is going to be a two-point perspective drawing of the table. So guys, I'm going to start by showing you the three basic essential kind of systems of perspective. The first one is called one-point perspective, and the images will look like this. This is a one-point perspective image from the movie The Shining. You can see everything is receding in the center, and the filmmaker, here, you can see it better, and the filmmaker is using the one-point perspective view to bring our attention to the main character, right? You can see all the columns and the walls and the lines of the table are receding right into Jack Nicholson there. This here is also a one-point perspective drawing. You can see all the lines receding into the center. Give you some other examples that I have. Here's a really good one-point perspective example, usually like the hallways and anything that is kind of, we are standing in the center and the lines are receding, are giving us this view, a kind of symmetrical view. Let me see if I have any other ones. Here's a few more. This is also one-point perspective. And so is this. This is also 1 point perspective, you can see. So in 1 point perspective, one side is facing us, like the side of the table and the side of this cabinet. And also you could see that, for example, in this image, the walls are facing us. So the lines are horizontal and vertical. And they're just parallel to the edges of the paper, but all the other lines, like in this image, all the other lines recede into 1 point, and I will show you how that works in drawing. So these are 1 point perspective. 2 point perspective is a little bit different. You know that you need to use 2 point perspective if you're seeing a corner of something. So in this building, you can see the corner of the building. So you see 2 sides of the building, not one side, but 2 sides, right? The same thing in the room. Like, for example, if we're looking at this room, we see the corner of the room. So we see this wall as well as this wall. So whenever you are seeing a corner, you're seeing 2 sides of something. Here's another example of 2 point perspective. So you see two walls and you see a corner, and the same here. This is also 2 point perspective because we see a corner of this building and we see 2 sides. So that's 2 point perspective. Now 3 point perspective is a little bit trickier, and it is used for very specific kind of points of view, either looking intensely up or down, sometimes for bird's eye view. I don't have an example right now, but maybe I'll print it by the time we move to 3 point perspective. So you could see it's a 2 point perspective, building in 2 points, right? So we see the corner and we see the 2 sides, but also it is receding up because we're all the way on the ground. Imagine we're like the size of a mouse and we're looking up at this building, and it looks really, really tall and goes very far into the distance. So it has its own vanishing point in the distance. First, I'm going to show you what 1 point perspective looks like in a simple form. So what we need often in perspective drawing is to understand where a horizon line is. And a horizon line is really the eye level of the viewer. So depending, here's my viewer. Oops, needs a better nose. My viewer. And this is their horizon line. If the viewer changes, just like I showed you where the boy was sitting down on the floor, we're looking up at the building. So if the perspective of the viewer changes, the horizon line moves with it. And the reason we need a horizon line, because it is on that horizon line that we have this vanishing point, because everything is receding and becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappears on the horizon. So the way to draw 1 point perspective is to begin, all the other lines are going to be parallel to the sides of the paper, so vertical or horizontal. So for example, here we see something, I don't know what it is, a box, but the other lines are going to recede all the way into that vanishing point, and we only have one vanishing point. I want to point out to you guys, when you're drawing perspective, you don't necessarily have to draw the lines all the way there. You can draw just the part of the line that you need. So here I drew a box that is going in 1 point perspective. So for example, if that box had maybe an opening at the top, I would draw it like so. And all the other lines would be parallel, right? And for example, in here, let's say the box is empty and we can look inside of it, okay? If there is a box right here, the same thing. It's going to have the lines, oops, I'm gonna make it a little taller, lines parallel to the edges of the paper, horizontal and vertical, just straight like that. But then the sides of the box are going to recede into the same place, and you can decide maybe this is a longer box right there. If something is above, if we see something above, it will it will be the same way. So let's say that there's something above here, above the horizon line. Now the lines are going to come down. Like for example, like a light fixture that you might be drawing on the ceiling would look something like that, right? And if it had, for example, if it had round lights in a row, you can still draw guidelines for yourself, and then you will know how these lights are going to fit and diminish into the distance, right? So this is one point perspective. If something obviously is over here, let's say there's some columns, maybe there's several, like 1, 2, like this, right? And again, the front is going to be just horizontal and vertical lines, completely straight, so nothing changes, but the sides are going to be diminishing into that vanishing point that we have dedicated to this drawing. And that vanishing point does not change for this drawing, right? In another drawing it may be different. Most of the time it's in the center or close in the center, but it doesn't have to be in the center. It can be off center as well. So hopefully this makes sense. So this is 1 point perspective, right? This right here is called vanishing point. That everything vanishes into that point, right? So let's see what that looks like when we draw a room like this, for example, right? So I may begin I'm gonna pick up kind of a random vanishing point right here, but I may begin my room by sketching the walls and the ceiling. So I think I'm going to go maybe down here. This line I'm going to make very lightly because in the front of this wall it's going to be the couch and some other parts of the room. So I don't want it to be too dark because eventually we're going to erase it, right? And now this is the back wall where the windows are. And now I'm going to use this point right here to figure out what happens to the walls. So the walls I'm going to line up. You can see I line up my ruler with the corner of the wall as well as with the vanishing point, just like that, and it's a straight line. You definitely want to use a ruler or the string system, which I will show you in a little bit. And this right here, I wish I didn't have my spiral right there because it's a little bit in the way, but that is now, I've created the space of the room, right? So it's very simple. Now I'm going to try to sketch in, I think there's a cabinet on the right, but let's sketch in this couch. Let's say it starts right here, and the front of the couch, something like this, is going to be facing me with lines parallel, just like in these boxes, but the cushions of the couch are going to be receding into the vanishing point like so. And right here there's another part of the couch that extends. It's like a sectional couch right here, and then the side of this cushion is also going to recede into the vanishing point. I'm making them a little bit more rounded so it looks a little more like a couch. It doesn't look like a box. And right here there's a division of the cushion as well, like that. Yes. Now in the back there's also a wall of the couch in the back, but that wall is going to go just straight up, just like so. But if we see the top of the of that wall, like the thickness of it, that will also recede into the vanishing point in the back, just like so. So you can see I've sketched in the main couch. There is also a wall right here, so like the thickness, yep, and it's also receding. Oops, there we go. That was wrong. There is a right and a wrong when it comes to perspective, and this is really important. Even just a few degrees, look at that, just a couple degrees make a huge difference in where that line lands, and you could make the whole drawing correctly and you make one place wrong and the whole drawing looks crooked. So you have to really pay attention when you are drawing in perspective to make sure that you're consistent. So for example, if there are cushions on this couch right here. So we'll see the front of the cushion in the same way. And right now I'm going to erase this line so it's not in the way of me drawing the cushions. But the sides of the cushions are going to follow the same rule of perspective, which in this case we are using 1 point perspective. So you can see like the cushions on the couch will be sitting kind of like that, right? It's a modern looking couch here. It does have some feet, so right here you can give it some feet, or right there. There is a fireplace on this side, so to sketch in the fireplace, I'm also going to make the front of it that's facing me kind of straight, like so. But the sides are going to line up with my vanishing point right here. So this is the front of my fireplace. I'm going to erase the line of the floor and the wall. And in here, I'm going to sketch in the opening part of the fireplace. Does that make sense? How we lay in the room? So it's the same idea, but now we're applying it to actual pieces of furniture or fireplace, as I said right here. So for example, it has this part there, and it's going to recede into, and all of these lines will also go into that vanishing point. So as I've mentioned to you earlier, this system was invented during the time of the Renaissance. And if you look at the Renaissance paintings and drawings, you can see interesting details. Like, for example, the floor would never be left out plain, or rarely would be left out plain. Often we would see some kind of tiles or some kind of planks, basically something that would actually exaggerate the perspective, that bring out this new knowledge that the artists were using, and would kind of highlight it in their drawings, in their paintings, right? So often you will see checkerboard floors, or you will see like wooden planks that are included in the painting. And obviously it's not incidental. The artists used it intentionally to show off their perspective. As you can see, when I add this into my floor, boom, it comes alive because of the perspective. There's also a cabinet on the right that has these drawers that also uses that is quite interesting because there we go. We're going to bring it forward a little bit here. Make it a little bit closer to us. This cabinet is going to sit right here. And if I were to give it legs, so the front of the leg will be facing us. The side of the leg is going to be vanishing into the distance. So here are some drawers that also bring out the linear perspective. And the top would be horizontal. So except for the lines that emerge out of the vanishing point or go recede into the vanishing point, all the other lines in 1 point perspective are either horizontal or vertical, right? So there's some windows. I haven't drawn the windows, but the windows are going to be simply let's see, maybe I can make like really skinny windows, but they're going to be simply vertical and horizontal lines, just like so. But if I were to draw a window sill, for example, so here's my windows, right? But if I were to draw a window sill, then I'm going to use my vanishing point like so, extending like so. And maybe they have a thickness. So that's how the windowsills would look. And there's a kind of a single lamp right here, but also it would have been cool to show a series of lamps because they would also recede into the distance. So here's 1-point perspective drawing. You can also place maybe a painting on the wall. But you will see whatever it is that you are working with, whatever image that you choose to create for this project, you'll see what kind of elements that you can include to kind of highlight your perspective drawing. So that's 1-point perspective. So for the 2-point perspective, let's try to draw something. So let's say that there is so we start with a corner rather than the front, right? Like in 1-point perspective, we started with the front. Here we start with the corner, and the top of the corner is going to recede into vanishing point number 1 and into vanishing point number 2, both, right? So both the top and the front are receding. The sides are always vertical, parallel to the edge of the paper. And now this is the trick. So from here you went to this, to vanishing point number 2. Now from this corner you're going to go back to vanishing point number 1, and from this corner you're going to go back to vanishing point number 2, so that your corners can meet. And that's drawing in 2-point perspective. So let me show you again. Let's say there's something over here that's taller, like a column or something else, and from the bottom it's going to go to vanishing point number 1. I'm not going to make the whole line, just a little bit that I need. And from the top it's going to go to vanishing point number 1, and it's also going to go from the top to vanishing point number 2, and from the bottom to vanishing point number 2. Now the other ends are going to be completely vertical, just like so. And there you go, you have again a tall building or wall that is in 2-point perspective. If something is above the horizon line, again, so let's draw like that. Maybe again like a light fixture. If you're drawing an interior, I'm going to vanishing point number 2, and the same with the top corner. And these lines are completely vertical. Now from here, I'm not going further here. I'm going back to vanishing point number 2. And from here, I'm going back to vanishing point number 1. So now I have a fixture that is above the horizon line that I'm looking up at, right? So hopefully that makes sense. If you have a corner in the room, like for example, if there was a corner in the room right here, if I was drawing a floor, again, I would go there and there. Just like that. Actually, this is a corner, extending corner in the room might be below so we could see it. But it depends on your perspective, right? It just depends where you are, where you are as the viewer. So that's 2-point perspective. And now we're going to try to make a drawing in 2-point perspective. And I'll show you both, maybe the side of the building and also an interior. So for 2-point perspective, I'm going to show you, we'll draw this building right here, or at least parts of it. I don't think I'm going to draw all of it because it will take some time. So again, ideally my vanishing point, like for this building, would be off the page, right? But I'm just going to draw it small on this page so that you can see it. But when you're actually making your drawing, it's very possible that your vanishing points will not be on your within your drawing, right? So here's 2-point perspective. Now again, the easiest way is to start with a corner. So I'm going to start with a corner of this building, and from that corner I'm going to draw one side of the building. See, like my building is going to look a bit different than the building in the picture because, again, because of the vanishing points being so close. So it's a little more dramatic view, but you'll get the idea. So here's generally my building, but I'm not making it final because right here, for example, there's a part that extends out beyond the building. So here I'm going to go to vanishing point 2 to draw this part extending out, and vanishing point 2 to draw this part extending out. That's going to be a vertical line, and from here I'm going to go to vanishing point number 1 to finish off this side right here. As you can see, it's like a part that connects to this building and extends out. And actually there's a part behind there that is a smaller part also that continues like so. So that's generally the layout of my building. Now, again, in this place, if you'd like, it's a really good idea to help you to erase, for example, the horizon line or any other, like see here, the lines that extended too far, so that you don't get too confused as you go about drawing this, right? So now I'm going to sketch in the spaces for my windows. I'm going to do this with light lines because I'm not sure yet where the windows will be. So these are just kind of guidelines so I know where to position them. I'm using vanishing point number 2 for this side of the building, and I would use vanishing point number 1 for this side of the building. So you'll see right here. So for example, right here, there was a window right there. You can use your ruler, of course, and there's a window right there, like so. And then there's windows on this side, so there's one on the top and one below, like so. Of course, there's also lines in between for the frames of the windows, and there's more windows. There's one here, there's one there, and you can take your time figuring out exactly. But what I want to show you, so that's kind of the system for how to draw in the windows. I haven't drawn in all the windows. I'm just showing you sort of the method that I would use. The windows also have like above them a detail, so I would also use my vanishing point to sketch that in. There's a kind of decoration sort of above the windows. So again, that also goes with the vanishing point. There's a window sill that would also go with that vanishing point, right? So my windows are going to have details eventually, but I don't want to take the time with you guys for all the details, so you don't get bored watching me. You can make your own drawing. These also have windows. Again, this side of the wall is going to have the lines diminishing to vanishing point number 2, and the other side is going to have lines diminishing to vanishing point number 1, like so. So right here, there's some windows right there. And in here, there's 3 windows. So all of these lines are perfectly vertical, right? and these lines are perfectly vertical. Okay, so that's kind of how you would sketch in those details. For example, there is a chimney coming up here. Again, we would be using vanishing point number 2 for this side of the chimney, vertical lines for the sides, and vanishing point number 1 for this side of the chimney. If there are details, there's like a smaller chimney, it would have the same thing. So right here would go to vanishing point number 2, and right here it would go to vanishing point number 1. There's the chimneys. Now, there is an interesting element. There is a kind of a entrance in here that extends out. Actually, it extends out a little further because I have a window there. So maybe something like this. There we go. It's gonna cover this window, but that's okay. So this is an entry point, and in this entry point there is an arch right here. So what I wanted to show you, that arch fits into the box shape, right? So this way you'll know exactly how to draw the arch. And for example, if we see the inner part of it here, oops, it will go to vanishing point number 1. So this is how you would lay out this building. Right here, if there's any windows there, they would also go to vanishing point number 2. They would be smaller than the windows in front of it, right? Because they're further away. So everything that is moving further away from us is going to become smaller. So that's kind of how you would lay out. There's also some columns in there. So the columns would be placed in here. The side of the column again would go to vanishing point number 2. That's top over here. So that's an entryway. There's another door in here that we see that you can walk through both doors. And you begin to add the details, of course, because now you can really have fun with this. But at least you have a sketch of the building and you know how to proceed from there, hopefully. Now I will also show you how to sketch in the interior in 2-point perspective, which again, we're going to start with the corner, but instead of in the building, we started with the corner that extends out. In the room, it's the corner that goes in, right? So it's going to be just a little bit different, but the same concept. So here's our horizon line, vanishing point number 1, vanishing point number 2. Here's our corner, and from this corner we're going to draw the ceiling to vanishing point number 2, like so, and from this corner to vanishing point number 1, like so. And then you can also sketch in the floors, the vanishing point 1 and vanishing point 2, like so. So here's a room. You can see wall 1, wall 2, ceiling, and floor. And now into this room, if you'd like to put in some furniture. So for example, right here, it's going to be a little of a dramatic view because, again, because my vanishing points are on the paper. So here is a box for the shape of the couch. Like so, and then like the back of the couch as well will go to vanishing point number 2, and this line will be vertical. If I erase the bottom of this corner, it will help you see a little bit better. Here I can extend a little further and also have the top. There we go. A little bit straighter. Of the couch. So there is the shape of the couch. the same way, like if you were to draw a table in the center, it would go also to vanishing point 1 and vanishing point 2, like this. And all the other lines would be absolutely vertical. So for example, right here, so, all right, this one is crooked because of my spiral notebook. I can't quite put my ruler there. So it looks like this. The way you want to check your perspective drawing, if it's correct, is that make sure all these lines are absolutely vertical, but also anything that is further away from the viewer needs to become smaller. And that's how you know that it is correct. So if there are windows in here, you would sketch in the windows. And they would also recede in these vanishing points, and they may have the window frames, right? Something like that. Okay, so here's the beginning of your room. It may have more details, but this is your room in 2-point perspective. And at last, I'm going to show you 3-point perspective drawing of this building. So your paper is going to have a very low horizon line because it's as if you have the view of a mouse. And this is going to be your vanishing point 1. This is going to be your vanishing point 2. And up here is going to be your vanishing point 3. And all your lines, so for example, this is where we're going to start with the corner of the building, but all your lines are going to recede. So for example, this building has different sections. Now, because I'm doing this a bit quick, it might not look exactly like the building there, but it's looking like a Christmas tree so far. Very extreme perspective here. So the sides of the buildings are not going to be parallel to the paper. In fact, nothing in 3-point perspective is parallel to the paper. Everything is receding, so like this. Boom. And boom. Done. And like that. So I'm lining up the edge of this wall with my vanishing point, vanishing point number 3. I did not need to make a line all the way. Vanishing point number 3. Vanishing point number 3. So there is the basis of the building. Here, this was a little extra. And all the windows and all the parts are going to be done the same way. Now you can see some of these roof pieces extend out, so it simply goes further out, and then the underneath part you use the other vanishing point. So right here it's going to go out this way, and then I'm going to use the other vanishing point to draw the part underneath, and then right here is going to be the part here, and it also has a thickness right here and thickness there, and like so you could see this is going to come up a little bit more, and this is going to come up. You can see how I can begin to sketch in these underneath parts, right? There's another column on this side. Again, the vertical lines I'm lining up with vanishing point number 3, but all the side lines are using vanishing point number 1 and vanishing point number 2, just like in 2-point perspective. There's another part here which I avoided. Here we go. It's got 2 parts, so it has a part like that and a part like so. And it has a part like this and a part like that. There we go. Right? So you could see how these 3 parts come from underneath. And also notice that I'm not drawing everything at once. I need to sketch out first the general form, so I have about the dimensions and the parameters of the building, and then I can begin to add the parts and move things around if I need to make any changes. So again, in 3-point perspective, the sidelines are all diminishing in point number 3, and the horizontal lines are going into vanishing point number 1 and vanishing point number 2. So what I'd like you to do for the actual project is walk around some spaces in your home, outside, maybe in your neighborhood, maybe in the city somewhere, and take some photos and use one of those photos that you find particularly interesting, either showing 2-point, this is 2-point perspective, or showing a 1-point perspective. And you can also sometimes find interesting stills from movies and use those as your sources for drawings, but all of these are wonderful sources this is all 1-point perspective to draw from. You can find some interesting interior spaces, interesting play of light. You can use any material, like this is a charcoal drawing. So is this here, like 2 charcoal drawings. So this is what your perspective drawing can look like in charcoal. Full value changes, completely shaded with light, complete drawing, not just a line drawing, right? But if you want to use pen and ink, your drawing may look something like this. Also has plenty of values and shading. It also has detail, right? And if you want to use, maybe this is just an ink drawing also, that's really beautiful. You can also use pencil. I do not do any examples in pencil, but again, in pencil, it needs to be fully shaded, just like this micron pen drawing. I would recommend not using color for this. That is a little bit too complex, I think, for this one, unless you decide to use pen and ink as your base and then you wanted to add some watercolor to it. But I expect to see some shading in the pen and ink for this drawing. So most likely you are going to use a ruler in your drawing, but I also wanted to show you another system that uses string to do linear perspective that is actually really fun, and so maybe even a little bit easier to do. But what you do need is you need a little bit of space to do it. You don't need this much space. I made it bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. But you do need a little bit of space so that you can stretch a horizon line, and so your vanishing points can be off the page. So I'm going to make a few drawings on the wall here for you, one using 1-point perspective and one using 2-point perspective, using string and push pins to help guide my lines. So there we go. So for the 1-point perspective, I think I'm going to draw this space right here, and I'm going to make the vanishing point right here in the center, just above the horizon line. So this right here, what I stretched, is my horizon line. What it means is really my eye level. You can see I stretch it right at my eye level. If my eye level changes, the horizon line is going to change
with it. So for example, when you climb up a mountain, your horizon line changes, you can see much further. The perspective of your view is very different. When you lay down on the ground, horizon line moves with you down low, so the depth of field that you're able to see is much less. You cannot see nearly as far as you can see from the top of the mountain. So for the 1 point perspective, this is really easy because we only have 1 point, and we're going to use this one string to guide our lines. And I think I'm going to draw this image right here. I'm going to put it somewhere so you can see it. You can't see it anyway, so I'll just hold it. And what I'm going to do is first draft out this path. So right here, I'm going to make my line go out this way, and then my line go out this way to sketch this. And then actually I'm going to make a wider one going all the way to the edge of the paper, like so. It's good to stretch your string nice and taut so your lines will be a little bit straighter than mine. And then I'm going to also make some lines going up in this direction, like so. And these are going to be the columns. Let's see. Yep. These are going to be the columns that will be also receding into this one vanishing point. So you could see all the lines are leading to this one point that's right in the center. Now I'm going to use my ruler to sketch some of the columns. So right here, for example, is going to be my first column, that big, and then my next column. So as these elements are receding, not only are they becoming smaller, but also the spaces between them are also becoming more narrow. Eventually, we don't even see the spaces between them. They kind of merge together and become one. Now in here, they don't go all the way because there's an arch right here in my image, and that arch connects to the column that continue on the other side. And what you will see is actually these are kind of round columns, so they look like this. This really close. Yep. And the same is going to be here. And there's also bases. Yes. And they actually have, so the way 1 point perspective works is that we see the front, and then we may see the side of the column, like so. So these bases that are extending out a little bit. It's a little tricky drawing on this wall because it's not flat. So it's really hard to make straight lines on a wall that is not straight. That is not flat, sorry. Okay, I already noticed a mistake that I have made because I have not been using my my string, my vanishing point, but all of these sides of these columns are also going to go along into the space that is receding. But the front is going to be straight and the side is going to go vanish into the space. So that makes sense. So anything that is, I don't know how well you guys can see this, but anything that is receding into the space will follow the string that is it's a little bit too big. Everything is becoming smaller as it goes further into space. And these columns will also extend. Also, if there's lines in the floor, as in this image, they will also move closer together as they go further into the distance. And apart as they come closer to us. So if you could see how I drafted out that 1 point perspective space, there's also some more columns in there in the center to kind of go, smaller one and bigger one here. And these are also little columns. Of course, it'll look a little bit better when you use the ruler, which I'm not doing right now. But this is a layout of this giant church space, and all you need is a string. There's also benches, so I haven't drawn the benches, but the benches also have, let's draw one. The benches also have the front. So for example, here's a bench, right? Like looking something like this. I'm simplifying it right now. And the side of the bench is going to follow our 1 point perspective. See how wide it is? It's not that wide. It's like something like that. Maybe something like this. And so there's a little bench. You can also probably see the top of it, and the top of it will also follow the line. And then all the benches beyond this, so for example, see another bench right here. Again, the front of it will face us. You'll know exactly where it ends by placing your string there. So here's the next bench. And the sides will follow the string. So like the feet, actually I did not do justice to the feet. Need to be more like that. And so on and so on. So there's like a whole row of benches. I don't know why I chose this image that has many details, but you could see, so all I have is one vanishing point and a string that moves around. If anything is above, it moves this way. And it's really easy to kind of plan out your different parts. Now we're going to try the same thing with 2 point. So now we're going to make a 2 point perspective drawing of the interior of a room, something similar to the way my couch and coffee table looked in the camera when I was walking around. And you could see I placed 2 vanishing points, a green one and a yellow, and here are my strings that I'm going to use to make everything. So when you're drawing a room, it's a good idea to start with the corner and kind of decide where your corner is going to be. And all the lines except for the lines that are diagonal, all the other lines are going to be completely vertical, right? So I'm going to make approximately like the line for my corner, and then I'm going to sketch in the ceiling by pulling the vanishing, oops, didn't tie it very well, let me retie it, by pulling this string from the vanishing point on the right, and bring it up here, and I'm going to make a line. And I'm going to do the same thing with this string right here. pulling, matching this spot because that's where the walls meet. And this is going to be my other line. So this right here is the line of the ceiling. Right? Use a ruler to sketch those out. And then, for example, under the ceiling, and there's a kind of a row of lights. So again, I'm going to use this string here, and I'm going to use this string here to sketch them out. And right here are going to be, actually, you can make them like so, are going to be the lights, and the same going in this direction. There is going to be some lights. Yeah. And let's see on the wall, let's do the floor actually. So we're going to do the floor by the opposite, taking this line right here. So this is going to be our corner, and this is going to be our floor, and this is going to be our floor coming this other way, right? So you can see the room. We got two walls, ceiling, floor. Now, for example, there is a picture hanging on this wall. So again, I'm just going to use these. All the other lines are going to be vertical. So here is, put it in a frame. There is a picture hanging on the wall, right? So you can see, or it could be a window. And now we're going to sketch in the couch. So the couch is going to sit just a little bit above the floor level, hopefully. Actually, it's a little bit away from the wall, so it's right here in this image that I have. So it's going to be something like that. And this, now because the couch is not vertical, this angle right here is just an angle of the back of its cushions, and then the front of the cushions are going to be here, and they also have a thickness, so you will see this is going to be the front and the side and the back of the couch, right? Also, it's going to have a thickness here, and this is going to be straight up. But this right here is going to also recede into the vanishing point, just like the benches in the other image that I showed you. So this I'm going to go here, and this I'm also going to bring there. Now, because I'm only concerned about perspective, I'm not sure about proportions of my couch, but I think they're okay. And again, we're going to use this one. Here we go. Like so. Oops. I need to learn how to tie better. You can see this line going here. Here. And these lines this way. Any lines that you no longer need, you can erase them so that you don't get confused in your drawing, so you don't have too many lines. So for example, the line on the wall right here, I can erase, and you can see how I sort of sketched the couch. There, the couch has these sides. I didn't do it right. Here we go. Again, this will go in this direction, and this will go in that direction, like that. So that I can erase this now, and also all of this. And on the other side, it also will have these Actually, I didn't do that right because it needs to match. I don't know. So it's a little bit lower. Couch. And if you wanted to draw a table in front, you know, you will follow the same idea. You can have a table maybe this big. I don't know how big the table is, probably not this big. And let me go down, so, and again, using this line, and oops, that was wrong. So one way, there is a right and a wrong way, always in perspective, and one way you'll know something is off is if the edge that is further away from you rather than closer is bigger. Everything that's moving further away is getting smaller and smaller, and everything that's moving towards you is getting bigger. So if for some reason you notice, like in the other one where my string moved and this edge was a little bit larger, I immediately can tell there's something wrong and needs to be corrected. Okay? So this is, I'm keeping these objects very simple so that you can see what I'm doing and how to lay it out using these the strings. Let's see, what else can I draw for you? There's a armchair on this side, but I would draw it in the same way, very similar to the way I drew the couch, so I don't know that it's going to be particularly interesting, but we can do it. Here we go. There. And this is, I think, oops, this is the seat. And then from here, we're going to make the edge of the seat. And have these go up. Like so. And how deep is it? About this deep. That is a very deep armchair. I think I want to sit in it. And again, you can erase any lines that are not useful for you in here so that you're not as confused about what it is that you're drawing. And there's a very deep armchair. How about we draw some magazines? Now, if your magazines are lined up with your table, like as if they're parallel to the edges, then you would use the same strings. Like for example, right here, you could have a book or a magazine that is laying absolutely parallel to the edge of the table. However, if they're not, if they're just kind of stacked around, then the books are going to have their own vanishing points. Like they may be just a little bit off, not quite the same vanishing points as the ones that we are using, right? Because they're not quite aligned with everything else in the image. What else? Let's make maybe like a square vase that could sit up here. Now, what's interesting is people think only linear things that follow, only kind of geometric things that you can draw this way. But what I want to show you is, so for example, let's say I make this vase geometric like this. However, if the vase is an oval or rounded vase, it also will be a subject to perspective and it will follow the same rules, right? So very often, for example, artists use linear perspective to sketch out parts of the human body and to understand how the human body moves in foreshortening. We're actually going to do this as well, but how the different parts receive when something comes towards you and something goes away. Linear perspective will really help you, because in a way, even though our body is organic and the forms are kind of irregular, you can break them down into geometric forms and build your body that way to help you depict a sense of depth with the body when the body comes towards you or goes away from you or moves somehow in space, in three-dimensional space. So I hope this was helpful to you and you received some tools that you can use now and go out and make amazing perspective drawings. I can't wait to see them.